Lauren spent 6 years paying off her student loans early, not the minimum payments, aggressively. Every spare dollar she had went toward eliminating that debt. She made extra payments every single month. She refinanced twice to get a lower interest rate. She declined vacations and held off on furnishing her apartment properly and said no to things she genuinely wanted because the debt felt like something she was not allowed to enjoy life until she had eliminated. At 32, she made her final student loan payment. She called her mother. She cried a little. She felt genuinely free for the first time since she graduated. Then she opened her 401k statement and saw $19,000, 6 years of aggressive repayment, 6 years of every extra dollar going toward a 5.8% interest rate loan, 6 years of feeling responsible and disciplined and like she was doing exactly what a financially serious person should do. Her colleague Brett had the same loan size, the same starting salary, the same 6 years. Brett paid the minimum on his student loans the entire time. He put the difference, every dollar Lauren was throwing at extra debt payments, into an index fund instead. Brett was not more disciplined than Lauren, sissicted. He was not more financially sophisticated. He had simply run the math once, seen that his loan interest rate was lower than historical market returns, and decided the debt was not the emergency Lauren had been treating it as. At 32, Brett had $67,000 invested, same 6 years. Same income, same loan. Lauren had $19,000 and zero debt. Brett had $67,000 and a loan balance he was still slowly paying down. Lauren had spent 6 years winning a competition nobody told her she didn't have to enter. My name is Nicole, and I have spent the last 12 years studying the financial patterns that show up specifically in women's money behavior and almost nowhere else. The debt elimination drive is one of the most consistent and one of the most expensive. Not because being debt-free is wrong. Being debt-free is genuinely good. But the single-minded prioritization of debt elimination over investing, the complete pause on wealth building, until every balance reads 0, costs women an amount in compounded retirement wealth that most never see coming because the math is hidden inside what feels like the most responsible decision available. She never misses a deadline. If you have ever felt like you could not justify investing while you were still carrying debt, or if you have been telling yourself that you will start building wealth once the debt is gone, this video is going to show you exactly what that sequence is costing you in real numbers. Subscribe and like this video. It helps reach more women who need to understand this before it's too late to change it. She never misses a deadline. By the end of this, you will understand why the debt-first sequence that feels like financial responsibility is frequently the most expensive order of operations available to you. I am going to show you the math on what happens when you invest while carrying low-interest debt versus eliminating all debt before investing. I will break down the specific psychological conditioning that makes debt feel like a moral emergency for women in ways it genuinely does not feel like for men. I will show you the precise interest rate crossover point where every dollar toward debt beats every dollar toward investing, and where the calculation flips completely the other way. And I will give you 3 protocols to restructure your approach in a way that eliminates the debt and builds the wealth at the same time without requiring you to become comfortable with debt in ways that don't feel right to you. I built a free calculators specifically for this because the standard debt payoff calculators show you only one side of the equation. Mine shows you both. The cost of carrying the debt and the cost of not investing while you carry it. The number that comes out of the second column is almost always the one that changes behavior. Link in the description. Think of your money as water flowing through a pipe. Right now you have 2 faucets that need water. One is the debt faucet. Water flowing through it eliminates a balance and removes an interest charge. The other is the investment faucet. Water in flowing through it plants seeds that grow into a forest over 30 years. Most people intuitively understand that both faucets need water. The question is, how much goes to each one, and in what order? The debt-first approach turns off the investment faucet completely until the debt faucet is dry. The logic feels sound. Eliminate the drain before filling the tank. But here is the problem with that logic that the metaphor exposes clearly. The investment faucet does not just sit there waiting for you while you finish the debt. It runs. Time passes. Seeds that would have been planted in year 1 are never planted. Seeds that would have been planted in year 2 are never planted. And seeds planted in year 7, when the debt is finally gone, do not become the trees that year 1 seeds would have become. They become smaller trees. Because they had 23 years to grow instead of 30 as the debt faucet charges you a fee to run. The investment faucet pays you a return. When the fee is lower than the return, running both faucets simultaneously is not reckless. It is the arithmetic of compound growth working in your favor instead of against you. And the moment you understand that, the debt-first sequence stops feeling like the responsible choice and starts feeling like what it actually is, a very expensive trade made in the dark. Let me show you the full math on what Lauren's decision cost her, because the number is not $48,000, and it is not even close to $48,000. Lauren graduated at 25 with $31, 0 zeros in student loans at 5.8% interest. She earned $64,000 in her first year and was able to free up about $800 a month beyond her minimum loan payment to put somewhere. She put all $800 toward extra loan payments. She paid the loan off completely in 6 years at 31, having paid approximately $12,000 in total interest over the life of the loan. Brett had the same $31,000 at 5.8%. He paid the minimum payment of $340 a month. He took the remaining $460 a month and invested it in a total market index fund. Over 6 years, Brett paid approximately $16,500 in total interest because he was paying the loan more slowly. But his $460 a month invested at historical average market returns of approximately 10% compounded grew to $43,000 by the time Lauren made her final payment server comparison. Lauren saved $4,500 in interest. Brett has $43,000 in investments. But that is still not the real comparison because those investments don't stop at $43,000. They compound forward for the next 33 years until retirement. Brett's $43,000 at 31, untouched and growing at 7% real returns through retirement at 65, becomes approximately $440. 0. Lauren's $19,000 invested starting at 31, with the same $800 a month now redirected to investing now that the debt is gone, grows to a meaningful number also. But she is compounding from a $19,000 base. Brett is compounding from a $43,000 base. And that base difference, earned in those 6 early years of investing versus debt elimination, compounds into a retirement gap of over $200,000 between two people who earned the same money, carried the same debt, and made equally disciplined financial decisions. Lauren was not less disciplined than Brett. She was more disciplined. She sacrificed more. She felt the pain of financial restriction more acutely and endured it longer. And she has significantly less wealth to show for it because she was disciplined in the wrong direction by the belief systems that made debt feel like a moral emergency, requiring total mobilization's tool rather than a manageable financial tool to be handled efficiently while wealth building continued in parallel. Let me introduce you to 3 women whose situations I want you to hold through the rest of this video. First is Diane's. 41. She has been paying extra toward her mortgage since she bought her house 7 years ago. Her mortgage rate is 3.1%. She has cut her remaining loan term from 23 years down to 15 through extra payments. She is proud of this. She talks about it in terms of what it will feel like to own the house outright. She has $88,000 in her 401k. She is behind her retirement target by approximately $160,000. She is making extra payments on a 3.1% loan, while the historical stock market has returned an average of 10% annually over the same period. Every extra dollar she has sent to the mortgage has earned her a 3.1% guaranteed return in the form of interest saved. Every extra dollar invested instead would have earned her a historical average of 10%. She has spent 7 years choosing the 1% option over the 10% option, while feeling like she was making the financially serious choice. Second is Vanessa. 36. She has $22,000 in credit card debt at 19% interest and $41. 0 in a personal loans at 7.2% interest. She is paying everything she can toward the credit card balance. She is contributing nothing to her 401k, not even enough to capture her employer's 3% match. The credit card debt is the emergency. Everything goes there first. And she is correct that the credit card is urgent. 19% interest is a genuine crisis that should be addressed aggressively. But the employer 401k match is a 100% immediate return on the money she puts in. Every dollar contributed up to the match limit doubles immediately before it earns a single cent of investment return. Vanessa is leaving a 100% return on the table to eliminate a 19% interest charge. The math on this is not close. She should be contributing enough to get the full employer match, even while paying down the high-interest debt aggressively. The match alone makes the 401k contribution the higher return option, even compared to a credit card at 19%. Third is Carmen. 29. She has no debt. She paid off her student loans last year, right on schedule, with the standard 10-year plan. She is now trying to figure out where to start with investing and feeling overwhelmed by the options. She has been debt-free for 8 months and has not yet opened a brokerage account or increased her 401k contribution above the minimum match threshold. She is not avoiding investing out of fear exactly. She is just in the in-between space. The debt chapter closed, and the investing chapter has not fully opened yet. 8 months of delay at 29 at her income level with her current savings capacity will cost Carmen approximately $31,000 in projected retirement wealth. The in-between space has a price. It is not dramatic. It is not a catastrophic mistake. It is just a quiet month-by-month cost accruing in a future she cannot see yet. Now, I want to talk about why Lauren's choice felt so much more natural to her than Brett's, because it did not happen by accident. It was the result of very specific cultural messaging delivered specifically to women about what financial maturity looks like. Across decades of research on financial socialization, the messaging aimed at girls and women about debt is consistently more emotionally loaded than the messaging aimed at boys and men. Debt is discussed with women in terms of danger, failure, vulnerability, and moral character. You do not want to be someone who carries debt. Debt means you are living beyond your means. Good financial women do not have debt. The emotional valence around debt for women is almost always negative in a personal identity level way. The messaging aimed at men about the same debt is more transactional. Debt is a tool. Some debt is good debt. Leverage is how you build. Carrying a low-interest loan while your capital works elsewhere is smart money management. The result is that a woman and a man can look at the same 5.8% student loan and experience it completely differently. For the woman, it is an obligation to be eliminated as quickly as possible because carrying it means she has not yet finished becoming financially responsible. For the man, it is a rate to be compared against available returns and managed accordingly. Same debt, same interest rate. Completely different relationship to what it means to carry it. This psychological is a deadline. This psychological difference in how debt is experienced is not a minor or abstract thing. It translates into 6-year financial decisions that cost over $200,000 in retirement wealth. It translates into 7 years of 3.1% mortgage overpayments instead of 10% market participation. She never misses a deadline. It translates into decades of wealth building that starts later than it should because the debt chapter had to be fully closed before the investing chapter was allowed to open. And it is specifically designed, not in a conspiratorial way, but in the sense that the financial services industry, advertising, and cultural messaging have all consistently reinforced the debt elimination drive in women because women who are focused on eliminating debt are not yet building the kind of wealth that generates fee income for financial advisors. Women who become investors generate fees. Women who are paying off debt in isolation are not yet in the market. There is no financial incentive in the industry to tell women to stop paying extra on low-interest debt and start investing instead, so nobody tells them. And the silence costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars across a career. Here is the specific interest rate framework you need to make this calculation correctly every time without relying on someone else to run it for you. The break-even rate for carrying debt while investing is approximately 7%. This is the historical, long-term, inflation-adjusted return of a diversified equity portfolio. If your debt carries an interest rate above 7%, every extra dollar toward that debt earns you a guaranteed 7% plus return in interest saved, which competes favorably with expected market returns. Aggressive debt paydown makes mathematical sense. If your debt carries an interest rate below 7%, every extra dollar toward that debt earns you less than what the same dollar invested in the market is historically expected to earn. In this case, minimum debt payments and maximum investment contributions is the mathematically superior strategy, high-interest consumer debt. Credit cards at 18 to 26%, store cards at 24 to 29%, payday loans at any rate. These are financial emergencies. Eliminate them aggressively. Do not invest beyond the employer match while carrying these balances, medium interest debt. Personal loans between 8 and 14%, private student loans above 7%. These require a case-by-case assessment. Generally paying these down while maintaining minimum retirement contributions makes sense. Aggressively overpaying them while investing nothing does not. Low-interest debt. Federal student loans below 7%, car loans below 5%, mortgages below 6%. These are the debts that women disproportionately treat as moral emergencies and aggressively eliminate before investing. These are also the debts where the math most clearly favors investing simultaneously. Paying the minimum on a 3.1% mortgage while investing, the difference, is not financial recklessness. It is compound arithmetic working correctly. The emotional discomfort of carrying low-interest debt does not change the math. It changes the feeling. And for most women, that feeling has been so thoroughly conditioned to feel like financial identity that challenging it feels like someone is telling them their character is wrong, not their calculation. It is not their character. It is their calculation. And the calculation is fixable. Here are the 3 protocols. First protocol: run the rate comparison. Before every debt-related financial decision, before you make any extra payment above the minimum on any debt, write down 2 numbers: the interest rate on the debt, and the expected return on invested capital, which for a diversified index fund you can conservatively estimate at 7% real return. If the debt rate is higher than 7%, the extra payment wins. If the debt rate is lower than 7%, the investment wins. This takes 60 seconds. It removes the emotional override that sends money to a 3.1% mortgage instead of a market that has historically returned more than 3 times that rate. This is not permission to ignore debt. It is a framework for deciding how much urgency each debt actually deserves based on its cost, rather than the emotional discomfort of carrying it. Second protocol: capture the full employer match before anything else. This is non-negotiable regardless of what other debt you carry. The employer match is a 50 to 100% immediate return on every dollar contributed up to the match limit. There is no interest rate on any legal debt that competes with a 100% return. If your employer matches 3% of your salary dollar for dollar, and you are not contributing at least 3%, you are leaving the highest guaranteed return available to you on the table while you pay off debt at any rate below 100%. The match contribution is not optional. It is the floor. Everything else gets decided after that floor is protected. Third protocol: set a debt and invest split and automate both simultaneously. For debts that fall in the medium or low interest category, stop choosing between paying them and investing. Choose both at a ratio. 60% of your available monthly surplus goes to debt, 40% goes to investment, or 50-50. Or 70-30. The specific ratio matters less than the simultaneous structure. Both faucets running, the debt decreasing, the investment growing. The compound clock not paused while the debt clock runs. Automating both removes the monthly temptation to redirect everything to debt during emotionally charged months. And there will be emotionally charged months. Just months where the debt balance feels urgent and the investment balance feels abstract, and the natural impulse is to send everything to the number that is going down instead of the number that is going up. The automation does not allow that override. It protects your future self from your present emotional state. Here is what Lauren's story looks like if she had known these protocols at 25. She runs the rate comparison. Her student loan is at 5.8%. Expected market return is historically 7% real. The debt rate is below the investment threshold. She sets a split. She pays $340 a month minimum on the loan. She invests $460 a month in a total market index fund. She captures her full employer match. She carries the loan for 10 years instead of 6. She's patient, paying approximately $4,000 more in total interest than she would have under the aggressive paydown schedule. At 31, when she finishes the aggressive paydown path and has $19,000 invested, This version of Lauren has $67,000 invested. By 65, the compounding difference between a $19,000 base and a $67,000 base at the same monthly contributions forward is approximately $380,000. Lauren paid 4,000 SIS more in interest to have $380,000 more at retirement. That is the trade that nobody showed her. Not because it was hidden, because nobody put the two numbers side by side for her at 25 and said, "Here is the choice you are actually making. Here is what the responsible feeling path costs, and here is what the different path produces." If someone had shown her those numbers at 25, she would not have chosen $380, 0 zeros less wealth, to save $4,000 in interest. Nobody would. The choice only felt obvious in one direction because only one side of it was visible. Here is what I want you to take from this. Debt is not a moral condition. It is an interest rate. And interest rates are just numbers to be compared against other numbers. The emotional weight that has been attached to carrying debt, specifically for women, specifically in ways that produce this pattern of wealth-destroying debt eliminations sequencings, is not financial wisdom. It is financial conditioning that benefits everyone in the ecosystem except you. Your debt is not the enemy of your wealth. Your wealth is the enemy of your debt. And the fastest way to eliminate the debt permanently is to build the wealth aggressively in parallel, because the wealth compounds into a base large enough to absorb any Tumusmalin while also funding the retirement that the debt elimination strategy was quietly consuming for years. Diane's house will be paid off. But Diane's retirement account will also be $160,000 short unless something changes now. Being never misses a deadline. Debt-free 5 means very little if being debt-free required the sacrifice of the wealth that was supposed to carry her through the 30 years after 55. Here are your 3 takeaways. 1. Every extra dollar toward low-interest debt is earning you that interest rate in guaranteed savings. Every dollar invested in a diversified index fund has historically earned approximately 7% real return. When your debt rate is below 7%, investing wins the math every time, regardless of how the debt feels to carry. 2. Your employer match is a 100% return. Nothing competes with it. Contribute enough to capture it in full before any extra debt payment goes anywhere. This is not a suggestion. It is the highest guaranteed return available to any retail investor, and it requires only that you contribute. 3. Run both faucets simultaneously. Set the split. Automate it. Remove the monthly decision that emotional pressure will always try to resolve in the debt's favor. The debt decreasing and the wealth growing at the same time is not reckless. It is the arithmetic of compound growth working correctly in both directions at once. I made this mistake, not with student loans. With a car loan at 2% that I aggressively paid off over 18 months instead of investing the extra payment. I was so relieved to close the balance that I didn't run the numbers until 2 years later. The car loan cost me an estimated $19,000 in projected retirement wealth for the privilege of paying off a 4.2% loan 8 months early. I drove that car for 4 more years after I paid it off. It was a fine car. It was not a $19,000 car, but that is what it cost me. And knowing the real number means I will never make that trade again. If you want to see the full breakdown of how I prioritize between debt and investment at different income levels and debt interest rate combinations, including the specific decision framework I use now, there is a videos on this channel that walks through the complete system. Real numbers, no affiliate links. Just the math. Thanks for watching.